Yeah. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining. And so this session we are going to see the source control management. So so the last session, right? We have discussed the introduction part. Okay. So we'll see what we are going to cover. So you are able to see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the main agenda for this session is first we are going to see what we have see yesterday, and after that the Azure DevOps, that particular tool overview, because the last session we have seen overview of Agile DevOps. We are not mostly not seeing in Azure DevOps part. And after that so one of the service from Azure DevOps, right, that is Azure boards for the projects or the task tracking actually. So that I am going to give some demo on that. And after that we are going to see for our today's maybe main concept, that is the source control, like maybe what maybe Azure DevOps is currently providing, what kind of source control management they are providing. And after that, maybe if you are not if you are new to Git, so I will just giving some introduction part. And then I'm going to show some demo on maybe from that Azure repos, so how we can create repositories, branches, and how you can secure the branches by using the branching policies, everything. And after that, maybe you have to maybe try maybe Azure boards, and maybe the branching policies in repository. So those and all labs to you. Okay. So hope you understand the agenda. Maybe let's we can go to the next one. So before that, so the next one. So yeah. So first, yeah. So what is Agile? So the Agile, so that is the one of the software development methodology. Okay. So there, for earlier we have deployed maybe as the so single release to the production and all, right. But here, so for the big release, we are broken down into many smaller releases, and the smaller releases. So we are going to take the development in the iteration based development, like for every 2 weeks maybe we have to agree, like so these are all the features that we are going to release it to the production. So at the end of the sprint, so when you are completing the particular feature, so we are going to review with the maybe the product owner or the client, and they will give the immediate feedback, and accordingly we have to change in our development, maybe in the subsequent sprint actually. Okay. And maybe in the one of the main feature in the Agile is like maybe in between, if there is any major uh, maybe it's a high priority task, so that we have to accept the change, and then we need to work focus on that one. So those and all, the scrum master and product owner, they will help us to prioritize the task and all. So here maybe we already discussed maybe what are all the kind of the sessions they will take, like the sprint planning, and then the maybe the daily stand up or scrum meeting, and the sprint review, and the sprint retrospective meeting. So all of the things will be happen. And yeah. So and then the so here mostly would be like 2 week sprint. And yeah, so the main advantage is like, so we will broken down the big application into smaller release, and for every week, maybe for every sprint, we will have the increment, maybe increment to our existing application. So that is what the agility is. Okay. And then the next one is the DevOps. The DevOps, the development plus operations. So in a traditional world, so there are two maybe the teams in the side of the corner, so they don't know each other what they are actually doing. So the development team, they are responsible for the speed of the delivery and then quality, and then the operations team, the infrastructure, and then the deployment related things, the operation team, they will take care. So the earlier what happens is like the development team, they will complete, and then they will give a maybe note to operations team that they have to deploy it. but maybe when we are deploying, right, there are many things also we need to consider, not only the source code binary. So there are many things like the database connection string or firewall, maybe the underlying framework version, and then the dependencies, libraries. There are many factors. Maybe when maybe the operations team, they have tried to deploy the application, they might face some issue, but at the time they don't know. So whether it could be related to the development side or it could be from the operation side, they don't know. And then maybe the operations team, they will look onto the development team and they will say like, from their local environment everything is working fine, but even the dev team also, they don't know, they don't have any idea that what the operations team they are looking and how to fix and that. So to fix those kind of issues, so instead of having the two role, so they are bringing into one role, like DevOps, and they need to, and then so this is maybe the culture and maybe the set of practices to combine people, process, and then here the DevOps person needs to be the responsible for the speed of the delivery, and as well as the maybe the stability of the maybe the deployment, all the infrastructure also. So the speed of the delivery means we are not going to develop anything, but maybe by using all the best practices, right, like continuous integration, deployment, so everything, maybe it will speed up the maybe the development process, and then it will increase the deployment frequency. So for example, if you are doing manual deployment, it might take more than maybe 1 hour something. So even it won't be the maybe if even there is some manual intervention needed, there can be some manual errors also. But in the DevOps under, maybe all the deployments and all will be happened in that maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Even for that we don't need the one time setup only required. So once the pipeline is stabilized, then after that we don't need to be care of anything. After that the dev team itself, they can take care of the development and sorry, the deployment activities and all. And yeah, so and the main goal of the yeah, and then main goal of the DevOps is like maybe the faster maybe fast time to markets. So from the time the developer they have completed the code, and then how long it takes us to deploy into production, so that, so from the DevOps maybe cultures, so we are able to move the application very faster. So that's the one, that should be the one goal. And then minimize the deployment failure. Maybe the initial stage, maybe there can be many failures. Maybe once the pipeline everything is set up, then after that there won't be any much issues. Maybe small patching may be required because some of the infrastructure upgrade and all. And after that, maybe immediate recovery from failure. Maybe when it comes to the larger application, so at the time, even if there is any failure, maybe the disaster or due to any reason, so that we have to bring that application also back, at least the previous working version, so something, so that the immediate recovery. So these are all the main goal, but apart from that there are many other things also, maybe that we can discuss in the subsequent sessions. Okay, so in the traditional flow, maybe the so it's maybe we can consider like waterfall. Okay, the maybe the there the phases can be like maybe analysis, design, development, testing, and finally the deployment. And also maybe the development and then the maybe operations team, they will be in the different team or peoples. So there can be many reason for failures, and maybe the time waste and all that, there is a chance to happen. But in the DevOps flow, maybe everything maybe the we are we will be creating the CI/CD pipeline. So when the developer has pushed the code to maybe the repository, so the trigger will start the build, code quality check, and then the maybe other compliance check, and then the deployment and all will be automatically happening. So that even this DevOps maybe culture or practice, so for every day we can run multiple we can run multiple deployments per day, so without any much work from our developer side. So there is some simple click or run deploy something, so it will automatically deploy to the other environments. And also here within the DevOps flow, so we can maybe the based on the tools future, we can set up some kind of the pre-gateway approval also. Maybe like before deploying to QA something, so you need to get the approval from the QA team, and before going to production and all, so you have to get the approval from the uh, maybe the manager or the product owner or someone. And also we can in between the DevOps, by using all the tools and all technologies, we can integrate many of the tools. Like maybe I believe you will be you and all working in the service now, the ticket management, so the maybe the change management and all. So maybe that we can integrate, there are many tools, so that we can go with the standard way, so that is easy to follow. And finally, so without any issues, we can incrementally adding the new features to the existing application, we can deliver the value to the customers. Okay. And then so that the next one is the DevOps best practices. So we have said, right, the DevOps means cultures, and maybe the set of best practices, that it's not like any standard or tool or something. Okay. So when it comes to best practices, there are many things. So in that, the most maybe widely used, the CA, the continuous integration, deployment, monitoring, continuous testing, and so on. And after that, maybe we have discussed the tool also, maybe what are the tools for each and every area. Like maybe what will be in continuous integration, continuous deployment, monitoring, so those things so we have discussed in the last session. So I think hope you are good. Maybe if you have any queries in the previous session also, yeah, you can ask me.
So in terms of tools, what tool we are going to
Yeah,
practice here?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So in this
native or do we use?
yeah, in this session, right, we are actually focusing on the Azure DevOps. So whatever the Microsoft, maybe the AZ400, right, so whatever they are giving it as the curriculum, so that's one we are going to use. But apart from that, there are many tools. Maybe once you understand the concept would be same in all the tools. Like when you take in the maybe Bitbucket and then the GitLab as the comparison, right? So both of them, they are trying to versioning the code proper manner, and maybe the end-to-end tracing should be there. Maybe if there is any maybe the reverting, maybe if you want to revert the particular code change, so the concept would be same in the all of the maybe the tools. But in our maybe scenario, or in our training session, it's fully focused on the Azure cloud, maybe in the little bit, and after that Azure DevOps, how we are going to integrate something. Maybe what I'm thinking, like maybe we will create some sample application. Maybe it can be from maybe .NET or Java, Python, and then it should be deployed into the Azure platform. So that is the easy solution. So that is why even so that Daniel also giving the Azure pass. Maybe otherwise we cannot maybe use other tools also, because we don't have any subscription and all, right? Maybe otherwise we need to do some we have to installation and all. But currently we are going to focus on the Azure DevOps, and maybe inside the Azure DevOps, so they are giving many services, right? Like Azure board, repos, pipelines, artifacts, test plans, and those are all the service we are going to focus more team.
So those are native tools.
Yeah. So yeah, those are native tools. So for example, currently if you are maybe attending some interview for Azure DevOps, okay, so they will be, so these are and all the group of tools, right? If the team is, if the one company is using Azure DevOps, then most of the mostly they will have the Microsoft Azure platform only. So maybe the .NET kind of projects, maybe the Microsoft Echo maybe thing, right? Maybe they mostly will use .NET, maybe the Azure DevOps, and then Azure the cloud platform only they would use. But sometimes they might use different cloud also. Maybe they can use Azure DevOps, and from that cloud platform they can use AWS or GCP also. But at the time, yeah, maybe in all the projects, right, we cannot learn all the skill set. Maybe we need to have the core skill set of the DevOps with any one of the tooling, and from there they can maybe we can easily grasp the other tooling knowledge also, maybe when we are going into the project. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. So the next one is the Azure DevOps overview. So as I said earlier, maybe the one more thing also you need to know. Something like the Microsoft, they are providing Azure DevOps, right? So they are giving in the two different type actually. One is the maybe the Azure DevOps server, and another one is they are providing as the maybe the SaaS platform. They are providing it as the service. Okay, we are just consuming it, so we don't need any hard maybe metal setup and all. So for example, I'm saying one example. Okay, so Azure DevOps means that is fully maintained by the Azure team. We are just consuming it. That's it. So we are not having maybe we are not going to install any software, or we are not going to update any kind of patches and all. But from that Azure DevOps server, right? So they will be providing some executable to us, and we only have to configure in our own data center or own server. Maybe when this can be possibly maybe when the DevOps server is needed means like, so when you are working on some kind of the banking projects and all, right? So mostly they won't go to the public network, or they won't go to the if maybe if you want to use internet something, they won't go with that. So within the private network itself, they will try to access all their applications. So in this case, what they will do is they will have the own data center, and then they will purchase the license from the Microsoft. They will provide the maybe executables, and then they will set up the Azure DevOps server in their own server, and within their network, right, within their client network, whoever the maybe the developers they need the access, they can connect it, so that our request it won't go to internet and all. So this is some kind of the security purpose. So some of them they might provide maybe they might prefer Azure DevOps server the installation, but most of them maybe they will use the Azure DevOps service also. So we don't want to do any kind of maybe the server management or installation or patch update. So anything, we don't want to do that. Okay. So maybe in our case, maybe mostly we are going to use Azure DevOps. So otherwise, right, maybe we need to at least we need to download some we have to download executable. We need to maybe install in our in our local machine. So I think that thing mostly we don't need. So we can just create a maybe free account from that Azure DevOps, and then we can just use as like the Azure DevOps server itself. So we don't want to much focus into that Azure DevOps server installation. So that is not required. Okay. And then as we know, so these are all the main services that Azure DevOps is providing. So this is the one-stop solution. Maybe in a earlier, right, maybe 2 to 4 years before and all. So you know that the for the project management, everyone using that Jira only. Okay. But so that is the one of the Atlassian project, right? The Atlassian only they are providing the Jira, Bamboo, Bitbucket, but they are having each for each functionality they are having a different tools. Maybe when it comes to the manageability, it's somewhat complex. So that so to by understanding those things, the many of the tools, right, the GitLab, even the Bitbucket, even most of them, they are trying to give a one-stop solution. So there they can get all the maybe the project management tools, source control, and build and release pipelines, and then the test plan management, artifacts management, and knowledge sharing. So all the maybe the features they are giving in the single maybe application, so that is easy to use as also. Okay. So these are all the things we are maybe going to see as part of this course. Okay, maybe in the pipelines we can see some kind of .NET or Java application. to deploy into maybe the app services or maybe the Kubernetes platform. We can deploy into Kubernetes platform. So yeah, maybe even that project also, maybe you can add it in your resume, so that maybe if you're attending any Azure DevOps or interview, maybe there is a high chance of getting it clear. Okay, so maybe in this session, so we are going to see Azure boards and then Azure repos. Okay, even Azure repos, we are going to be seeing very introductory part. Maybe in the upcoming session, we will see maybe what maybe at the enterprise level, how they will do the branching, and how they will configure the maybe the deployment strategy. So everything we will be discussing in the subsequent sessions actually. Okay, so the next one, yeah, so I will give some maybe introduction about Azure boards. Okay, okay, so this is the DevOps, maybe the Azure DevOps, the portal actually. Okay, so here, so you're able to see my screen, right? So I'm showing the Azure DevOps portal actually.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we could see it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the Azure DevOps portal. So we are not installing anything. So the Microsoft is providing Azure DevOps as the service. So we are just consuming it. So it is similar like you are using Office 365, right? So Office 365 is one of the software as a service. So similar like the Azure DevOps also, they are providing as the service. We are just using it. Maybe they will charge based on the person, maybe the number of person in our organization, they will charge based on that. Okay, so here how the hierarchy would be like, for example, the first screen would be the so this is the landing page actually. Okay, so there will be many organizations, so we can create many organizations like so for example, I will create a one organization like AZ400 training. Okay, I think it should be unique across the world. So okay, so this is already taken by someone, so we have to provide some other name. Okay, I think this one is okay. So I'm just creating the organizations. So mostly, right, maybe organization means for example, if you're a startup, they will just have a one organization. Maybe if you are working in some kind of enterprise level, maybe big client, so they will have the multiple organizations, maybe based on their team and all. Maybe for example, for enterprise level and all means, right, so they will be having the thousands of projects, so that they can't manage all the thousand projects in the same organizations. Okay, so that's why, so that is just based on our manageability reason only. So you can have maybe n number of organizations, maybe in the small, maybe you can create a one, maybe but mostly we are not for example, if you are also DevOps engineer, it's not mean that like you have to create the organization. So someone from the admin team or the maybe they will create the uh, organizations, and then they will just give access to us, and inside that we may need to configure the projects. And but mostly our work mostly would be in the pipeline setup only. Okay, so for example, this is our this is the existing org, and this is the one we have created newly. And if you want to change something, right, so in uh, the left bottom, so we have some organization settings, right? So here you can change something like the name, and then the privacy URL. Okay, and then the description, the time zone, and if you want to change the owner, so those things and all we can change it. And also maybe so under this organization, so currently we don't have any project, so I didn't create any projects, right? So that's why it's showing like empty. Okay, so if you want to maybe invite new members, so I think here we will be having option to the invite members. So for example, so most of the time, right, they will integrate with Azure AD, so that whoever they are in that active directory, all those users will be accessed here automatically. Okay, but for just for an maybe example, maybe uh, for just learning purpose, so I'm just adding some users here. Okay, so for example, I'm just providing like um, okay, so I'm just to click providing their email ID, and then what kind of access level we have to provide, like basic, stakeholder, or Visual Studio subscriber. So those things we can provide here. So the basic means but mostly like the read and the write access will have. The stakeholder means like maybe the scrum master, or maybe the product owner, right? So they don't need any access to write permission and all in the git and all, right? So that they will be added into that stakeholder, and then Visual Studio subscriber. But anyway, yeah, we will see that the role thing and all later, but I'm just showing you here like, so how to invite the new users into our organization. Okay, so for example, when we are sending this one, right, so here we have option to send an email invite also. So they will receive the email invitation in their inbox, and from there they can log into our application, log into our the DevOps, our organization basically. But currently, right, under this organization there is no project, so I cannot add maybe map them into any specific project. But when you're having any projects, you can add here. Okay, so I'm just clicking on add. Okay, I think here it is listed. Okay, but we have added today, but still they didn't access it, so that's why it's showing like never. Okay, and here it's something like the billing option, maybe the number of users, maybe so those things will be there mostly in the billing side. And then the auditing, maybe whoever makes any changes, so all of the maybe all those things under will be shown here, maybe. And then the global notification, so if there is any maybe the changes, right, at the time if you want to report through maybe the email or something, so those kind of notification we can add here. Okay, and then the usage. Okay, the usage is mean like for example, currently we are using the free version, right? So the free version means like maybe we will be having the less number of compute resources only. So for example, so when we are running some kind of build, right, so it will be queued in some other agent machine. So that agent machine we can have 1 800 minutes per month, which means like around 30 hours. So those kind of the usage details we can add, maybe the we can know here. Okay, and then the extensions is like maybe if you want to integrate with some of the third party tools. So that's why, so that through the maybe by installing the plugins we can easily integrate the particular tool actually. Okay, so I think here it is the marketplace. Yeah, you can just search, and based on that we can install the extension. But even that, some of the plugins also will be the cost, maybe we have to pay the license, and after that only we can install it. And with the free trial limitation, right, we can install up to 5 plugin only, I guess. Okay, and then the Azure Active Directory, and maybe, so I said earlier, right, so instead of inviting the users, so we can integrate Active Directory also. The Active Directory is the identity and access management solution. So if you are not aware, maybe whenever they are maybe you have the maybe the employee ID or email and all, right, so that will be stored in the Active Directory, and the password, everything will be saved there. So whenever you are log into that application and all, right, so it will go to the Active Directory, and then it will validate if the if maybe the username and password is matched, and after that only you will be able to log into the particular application. So it is The Active Directory also you should know that maybe that is the identity and access management solution um, from the Azure, maybe Microsoft. Okay, and then here the policies. Yeah, so here we are adding some kind of policies like maybe the in that authentication also there are many kind of authentication, the OAuth protocol and SAML protocol, and there are the federated based authentication. There are many things are there. So here we are just saying like how we want to connect the application. So the SSH and maybe the OAuth and all something maybe the secure one. So you are just asking like mentioning like whether you want to authenticate the server through SSH or the maybe is there any other option. So you are just adding the policies here. Okay, maybe for example, right, so you have the full access. Okay, so you can create the project there. Okay, you can create the projects within our Azure DevOps portal. But if maybe accidentally you have created the public projects, but you shouldn't create the public projects, because anyone in the internet, they can see our projects, everything. So that should not be the best practices, right? So that maybe you should not allow that one. So you have to always create the private policy when it comes to maybe organization at the enterprise level. But if you are just doing for the learning purpose and you want to add into our your resume, so that time you can add the public projects, and then you can add the maybe the URL, maybe the projects URL also with your in your resume, that can add some value when others, maybe the recruiters, seeing in your profile. Okay, and then here invite GitHub users, so those kind of policies here they are adding. And after that the permissions, so I think everything will be based on the role based. And here we can add the new organization, the new group also. And you can just assign maybe yeah, so you know, right, so how the role based the access and all will work. Like maybe here I can create like developers. So inside the developers group I will add all the maybe the team members. And wherever it is required, then I will maybe for the build the particular task, right, I will be just mentioning like maybe the developers group, they can run the build. So those kind of permissions we can set it here. Okay, and then the process, maybe the process means like agile. Yeah, so there are many there are many process. So earlier we discussed agile, right? So agile means we will have a backlog sprint, and then the user story and epics. So those kind of things and all. Uh, maybe the work item you will be able to create if you have created the agile, if you are following the agile process in your project. Okay, so for example, whenever you are creating any projects in Azure DevOps, it should be in any one of the process. Like either it can be agile, scrum, or CMMI level. So based on the process you are selecting, maybe the next the project management screen would be differ. So that is the main thing actually. Okay.
See them.
Yeah, the scrum also, it's similar like agile, maybe the lightweight project management solution. Okay, so maybe yeah, so under the scrum, right, you will be having this kind of work item types. Okay, yeah, it also similar like
Or is this like TFS kind of thing?
yeah, maybe it also like maybe the lightweight project management solution. Maybe I have said, right, for the agile, right, you will be having the sprint planning, and you will have the 2 weeks of sprint. Okay, so similar like here also they will be having some standard thing. So you will be following based on that. So for example, you will be creating the product backlog item, and you can create the I think here. Yeah, but maybe I will search, and maybe we'll discuss to maybe the next session. But more or less, it also similar like agile process only. Okay, but
Yeah, but
only
this
the
is kind of management board.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For example, you can either choose agile or scrum process. Okay, so when you are choosing the maybe the agile process, right? So maybe if you are choosing the scrum process, so these are all the possible work item types. Okay, so here you can see bug, epic, future, implement, and product backlog item, right? I think instead of product backlog item, I think in the agile they will be saying something different, and they won't have any impediment and all, I guess. So maybe I will open uh, agile also here. So for example, so I'm opening agile and scrum in parallel. So here the work item types would be vary. So for example, this is the agile, right? So you won't have any work item called product backlog and then implement and all. Okay, but when you are seeing in your scrum, you can see implement, product backlog item and all. Okay, so when you are maybe when you are following the particular process, right? So after that you need to create the task, and you have to maybe move to the task in the different state, right? So those and all, it will be based on the process. Okay, so for example, you won't have an option to create the implement in your agile process, but here they will be allowing. So similar like, so maybe it's more or like the project management, the software development methodology only, but maybe we can say like it's a lightweight with compared to agile, the basic and all, right? So here they are providing many things, right? The basic agile scrum. Okay, but we know, right? So what they will do in the agile. Okay, so similar like only the basic and scrum, the custom templates they would follow. Even we can create some new template also, something similar like agile. So for example, right, even some of them they have created the agile framework, we are just following it. But if you are comfortable by using some other methodology, that one also you can follow it, like by just changing the work item and all. Maybe here they will be having option to maybe the disable particular thing and all, I guess. The backlog levels, yeah, maybe I will explain. Maybe I didn't prepare the scrum one. Maybe I will maybe check that one. Maybe we will discuss on maybe what is the difference between agile and scrum tomorrow. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So and then agent pools, maybe whenever you are running any kind of build or release, right? At the time, so the build will be running in any one of the machine, right? So by default, Azure will provide some of the machine, but if you want to run, if you want to have any specific machine, you have to add in that pool. So, for example, the self-hosted or Azure Virtual Machine skill set. So, for this reason, you have to create a machine in VM, maybe Azure Cloud. You can create a one VM, so that you can configure it as the agent pool. So that whenever you are running any kind of build, right? So that will be running in your virtual machine. And once that build is completed, you will get all the maybe the artifacts and the logs and all in your Azure DevOps portal. So that is what the agent pool. So that also you have to understand what. So the agent pool is something important thing, so you want to understood. Okay, so for example, the Azure DevOps is the just a portal to having all the maybe the definition. But when it comes to build and deployment, right? So the build has to run in any one of the mission. So for example, if you're running maybe the 10 build, maybe the all the developers trying to run the build. So if it is happening in the Azure DevOps, the same the server, it will slow down. So because based on the load, right, it will slow down. It will actually slow down. But in this case, you have to configure some other machine, so that when you are running the build will be assigned to the particular virtual machine. So that will have the maybe a huge hardware resource to handle any kind of load actually. Even we can do auto scaling also, we can configure. Maybe when we are having multiple, maybe many builds, we can maybe we will have maybe many virtual machines scale set, so that maybe we won't be facing any kind of slowness and all. So that is about the agent pools. And then the settings here, like yeah, it's like normal settings. Maybe by just going through it you will be able to understand, like disable anonymous access to badges, okay, limit variables that can be set at queue time, maybe the variable things and all, right? So when we are coming to Azure pipelines, we can see that one. Okay, so whenever we are running that build, right, so we need to pass some kind of configuration to the particular build. So those and all will be possible through the variable. Okay, so yeah, we'll see that one, the variables and all, we can see that one. But it's but when so here you can, maybe if there is any kind of settings, yeah, we can configure here. Maybe these are all the possible things. So I think we cannot maybe create or any one of the things. So whatever option they are providing here, so that we have an option to enable or disable. Okay, so for example, one of the task restriction, okay, disable built-in task. Okay, so for example, when you are creating a new pipeline, right, either you can go with the YAML file configuration, and you can go with the built-in task also. Maybe the in the marketplace, right, they will have the built-in task. You can just add in your task, you can just pass the arguments, so that your pipeline setup is completed. So when you are a beginner, this is something very easy to follow. So but when it comes to enterprise level standard, so they won't use the built-in task. So that's not a good solution for maybe when we are having multiple environments, and maybe we cannot reuse the components basically. Okay, so that yeah, this is about the built-in task. And then the deployment pools. Yeah, logical set of target machines backing a deployment group for a set of projects. Maybe I think it is designatedly assigned to particular parallel jobs. Means, for example, if when you are running the build, right, there are many jobs you have to run sequentially. But when you are running the job in sequentially, the build, it will take some more time. Okay, but sometimes we can run the for some of the task, right. For example, I need to do the code scanning of sonar, and as well as maybe the check marks or another scanning also. So at the time I don't have any dependency within the two jobs, so I can run it parallelly. Okay, but from that maybe when we are using that self host, maybe the free trial, right, we won't have the parallel jobs things and all. So for example, for the free, right, so we can have the one parallel job something. But I think, yeah, that is based on the purchase. I think they will be giving based on the purchase actually. So the parallel jobs means you can run the parallel job, maybe the multiple jobs at the same time. So this is basically to reduce the your build time. So otherwise, if you're running something sequentially, it will take 5 minutes. But if you're running maybe the job in parallelly, so it will take maybe 3 minutes or something. So everything is based on the nature of the job only. We cannot maybe run everything parallelly, because here in the build pipeline mostly, maybe the next task, it will expect some kind of input from the previous task. Okay, so and then the OAuth configurations. Yeah, so this is yeah, so this is for maybe setting up the client. Maybe whenever you are connecting any kind of the external the tools, right? So there you have to provide the client ID secret key or some kind of from that Azure, right? So you will be having the maybe the service principal ID. So for example, right, when you are logged into any one of the system, you are using your own username and password. Okay, but when it is comes to system communication, right, we cannot, you cannot use your own credentials. So at the time we need to have the system id or the generic id. Okay, so yeah, so based on the client, we can configure this one. Maybe if you are yeah, maybe for example here, right, here we will be having option to configure the GitHub and then Bitbucket and all. Okay, so I think here we have to provide the client ID and secret ID to authenticate the Bitbucket cloud. So you maybe normally we will use using the username and password, but when it comes to system communication, we have to use the client ID and secret key. Maybe here we have to provide the Bitbucket cloud URL, and after that, maybe when we have completed creating this one, so it will initiate the communication. Maybe it will initiate the login, and it will validate the client ID and secret key, and if it is matches, then it will be added as the one of the tool here, so that maybe in your subsequent pipeline you can add the Bitbucket and all. Like you want to clone the repository from the Bitbucket, right? So those kind of places it will add. So I think currently, right, so they are giving these kind of source type: Bitbucket Cloud, GitHub Enterprise Server. So for example, if you are using the Azure repos in our same tool, that is fine. But sometimes maybe some of them they will do migration from Bitbucket to Azure DevOps, so that at the initial time they will be using the Bitbucket cloud for the repository, and maybe going forward they might migrate. Otherwise, maybe they can continue still use from the Bitbucket also. So that is about the OAuth configurations, and here the repositories. Yeah, default repository for new
Wait,
repositories.
so the out configuration, what is this exactly?
So okay, so for example, um, so currently within the Azure DevOps, right, you have the uh, maybe Azure repos for creating a new repositories, right? Okay,
Mhm.
so currently you just purchase the Azure DevOps account, okay, but your company already using the GitHub as the GitHub for hosting the repositories, okay. So at the time you cannot immediately maybe move all the repositories to Azure repos, right? So sometimes you need to work GitHub for the repository, and all the pipeline configuration you want to have it in the Azure pipeline, okay. So to just connect from the third party tools, so maybe in this case, for example, the third party means like Bitbucket cloud, okay. So for example, I am having the repository in the GitHub, sorry, Bitbucket, okay. Maybe my URL is like https and then bitbucket.com. Maybe I'm just for an example I'm just saying, okay. So this is my the Bitbucket cloud URL, and my client ID is that I can generate from the Bitbucket portal, okay. That maybe we can so we can log into Bitbucket portal, and there we can get the client ID and secret ID. Whoever the admin of the Bitbucket, that particular Bitbucket server or Bitbucket cloud instance, they can generate the client ID. So for example, the client ID is something like random some digits, okay, from alphanumeric characters, and here the secrets also the same thing, okay. I'm providing it like a Bitbucket, okay. So when I'm just click on create, it will just try to authenticate the Bitbucket cloud URL with the client ID and secret key credentials. But currently it's not the valid one. I'm just click on create, okay. See, so I have created here, okay, but whenever maybe from that Azure pipelines, right? So whenever I want to clone the repository from the Bitbucket repository, I can use this task there, so that I don't need to provide the client ID and secret values there, because I have provided here. So you got it right. So I'm just integrating Azure DevOps to Bitbucket. So I'm just I am having the source code in the Bitbucket. So just I want to use in our Azure pipelines, so that I am adding the credentials here, so that whenever I need to check out the task, maybe check out the particular repository, so I can use this the word configuration, so that I don't need to provide any kind of secret key and then client ID in the uh, yeah, in the pipeline definition. So you're just adding the configuration details, that's it. You're just so that wherever you are using, you don't need to provide the client ID and secret key. So those kind of authentication credentials you don't need to provide. So for example, you have the 100 application, okay. So for the 100 application, you have the 100 repository, and so all of the repository in the Bitbucket, okay. So for every pipeline, right, for every application you are creating a 100 pipeline. For every pipeline you should not hard code the maybe the client ID and secret keys, right. So for example, if I want to rotate the secret key, then you need to update in all the places, okay. That's not the good solution. So that's why, so the configuration you are making it in the single place. So you are just referring the maybe the configuration in your pipeline, so that yeah, maybe you can refer the same configuration in the all the pipelines, okay. So that's, it's a easy, right.
Okay.
uh,
I'm just trying to understand, the three options there, Bitbucket and
yeah,
GitHub.
yeah. So for example, similar, like, yeah, you can add GitHub also, and then GitHub
So
enterprise.
it's like choosing repository.
It's not like choosing repository, you are just adding the connection details here, okay. So that,
Right.
yeah, maybe
So,
choosing the repository, that one also may be fine. For example, you don't have a repository in Azure repos, so you are having the repositories in the Bitbucket or any one of these three options, so that you are adding the maybe the connection details here. So whenever you want to check out or clone the particular repository, so you can use these credentials, you don't need to mention in multiple places.
okay. It's like incorporating third
Yeah, maybe you here it's like,
party here,
yeah,
right?
yeah, maybe you are
Let's
just,
say if we are using only the Azure, so we don't have to use this auto or app configuration.
yeah,
Is
maybe,
that it?
yeah, maybe in our case, right, we can just use maybe Azure repos, but that may be based on the depends, maybe if you are working on some kind of client projects, right. So they are using Azure
Okay.
DevOps as the CI tool, but they are using Bitbucket as the source code management tool. So at the time you need to add the Bitbucket integration, the credentials here, then you have to modify the pipelines accordingly,
Okay.
okay. Yeah. So, and then the next one is the storage. Maybe here the artifacts, right? The artifacts means like, so whenever you are, uh, for example, whenever you are running the build, right? So the build means you are taken the source code and you are compiling it. So, and then you are getting, maybe you are getting, so you are using some kind of build tool. So finally you are receiving a binary. So the binary only you can be move it to any one of the maybe the platform, okay. So for example, for every binary, right, so it could be something like 2 MB, 3 MB, so something would be there, so that you have to store in some kind of medium, right. So they are providing the artifacts within the Azure DevOps, but so we have to set it up like what is the retention period, and maybe if you want some kind of maybe if you are having many projects and then we need more maybe storage, so those pricing and all we can see here. Maybe I want at least maybe 500 GB and I'm having 1,100 projects, so that maybe the definitely you need you need high need of memory, the storage, right. So otherwise maybe within a day or something your free memory will be filled, so that the we will be getting the build failure, okay. So for that reason, so based on that maybe requirement, you can have the so you can choose the storage pricing, and then based on that you can choose the corresponding the the premium or the basic one. So based on that, yeah, you can choose that, but it will incur some kind of cost also per month or something. Okay, so yeah, maybe here they are saying like caching and all. And yeah, so this is basically like artifact, the storage. The artifact we already discussed, like maybe the it is the medium to store the our binaries. So from here only we will be pushing our from that Azure artifacts we will be retrieving the build, and then we will be copying to our deployment platform, so which is means like the deployment. Okay. So okay, Tim. So if you here the only one thing is like for the process, maybe the tomorrow I will show the difference between the agile and Scrum process. But mostly this is for just for an understanding only. Maybe as you are a DevOps engineer, it's not meant like you need to know everything. So this is the maybe the responsibility of the Scrum Master. So the agile coach, right? So they're only configuring the sprint and maybe everything. So we are also one of the member in our agile team for just like automating all the manual tasks. Okay, but it's not mean like we only needs to initiate the sprint, or we need to maybe invite the new members to our team and all. It's not like that. Okay, our role is like maybe the configuring the pipelines, and we have to see what are all the tasks we can be automate by integrating all the features in the tools. And additionally we just need to know so the process actually what is the agile and some kind of things we are in the tools they are offering. So just we are trying to understand this one. Okay, so what we are going to see is like maybe we are going to create some new project from our newly created organization, and from there we are going to create some kind of work items, and we are going to move through maybe the in progress, completed and all. Okay, so for example this is the organization we have created. Okay, so for example I want to create a new project called maybe the this is something like maybe the .NET project. Okay, Microsoft .NET project. So just for an example I'm just naming it like .NET project, and maybe you can provide the description however you want. And after that, visibility, the visibility, the public means anyone on the internet they can view our project. And then the private means within the organizations, whoever you are inviting to participate in the project, they only can access the project release resources and like Azure board or artifact or pipelines or repos, everything. So whoever you are inviting into the project, they can only see. So that is about the private. So if you are choosing the public one means they can see actually. So everyone in the internet they can see it actually. Okay, and and then the next one is the advanced. So which version control we have to use. Okay, so the version control from the Azure DevOps they are providing two option. One is Git and another one is the Team Foundation version control. So this is the maybe the a decade ago. So maybe the TFVC is very popular, but with compared to TFVC, the Git is having so much of advantages. So nowadays, most of them are using the Git only. So we can choose the Git. Okay, and then the work item process. Maybe this is our project. Maybe which process we are going to use. Either it can be the Agile or Basic or the Scrum. Okay, so based on that, yeah, we can select this one. Maybe we can choose the agile also by default. The basic is chosen here. Okay, maybe the tomorrow I will maybe I'm get some information about the agile and scrum, the what is the difference between the both and all. Okay, so maybe what I'm thinking it like, so only the mostly it would be same, only the keyword something would be different. Yeah, maybe I will show you tomorrow. Okay, but here I'm just choosing it like basic. Okay, the default one, and then I'm click on create the project. Okay, so now the project is created. Okay, so this is the private project, and maybe if you want to invite any new members, you can invite them. And then so from the left side, right, here you can see the overview, and maybe the boards, repos, pipelines, test plan, and artifacts. So these are the things we have discussed, right? So what is the board for the project management, the repos for the source control, and pipelines for build and release, and test plans for the test plan management, and artifact for it will be working as the artifact repository. And maybe when we need or if you are going to maybe store the maybe the hundreds of builds in our the Azure DevOps, then at the time you have to choose the storage policy, maybe as we seen in the Azure storage, the organization settings, right? So based on that, you have to increase the storage quota. So then only we can store maybe maximum number of builds in our artifact repository. Okay, and here we have the project settings. The project settings also, maybe by just going through this one, yeah, you can understood like maybe the project and what is the team, and then the permissions, and so here, right, the build administrator, contributor, reader. So the reader means they won't have any write option and all. They will just have the option to the read the maybe the repository or the boards or something. The contributors means they will have the read and write option, and yeah, so maybe here you can see the description also. Maybe the build administrators can members of this group can create, modify, and delete build definition and manage queued and completed builds. Okay, so yeah, so this is based on the role based access control. Maybe if you are added into the part of the build administrator group, so you will have the particular scope of access. And if you are maybe the project administrator means they will have all operations. Okay, the reader means the only the restricted the read access alone. And even you can create the some customer uh, group, maybe custom group also you can create that one. Okay, and then the notification, maybe when the build is completed or when the task is moved to maybe the closed open state to closed state. So those kind of things you can create the build, the notification you can set it up. For example, so whenever the build is completed, maybe you can trigger the some kind of mail or something. Okay, and then the when the pull request is reviewers added or removed, if they are added some comments or something, so during that time also we can enable the notification. So this is the current maybe the notification options, and based on our need we can choose that. So for example, uh, deployment to an approved stage failed. So based on our requirement, yeah, we can enable, we can toggle, enable, or disable the particular notification options. Okay, and then the service hooks. So is anyone aware of webhook something? Okay. So, for example, the webhook means like, for example, if any action here, right? So, for example, whenever you are so in you can consider this scenario. You have the source code in Azure repos, but you have the build definition and the build pipeline and all managed in the Jenkins. Okay. So at the time you have to create the service hook or maybe the subscription. So for example, the Jenkins, right? Okay, the Jenkins. So here, when the code is pushed, so at the time I need to maybe run the build in the Jenkins. So those kind of the hooks things we can set it up here. So for example, in the repository, the from the .NET project, so currently we don't have any repository currently. Okay, so branch it can be any, because it's, I guess it's not showing any option because currently we don't have any branch, because we didn't create any branch, right? We didn't create any repository, right? So that's why it didn't show any branch here. and pushed by a member of a group. Maybe if they are the contributor, then only it should take the action, or the administrator. So those kind of things, yeah, you can configure. So for example, when the particular action is happen, like code pushed has been happen, so at the time this trigger will be happen. So from the next thing, right, so we need to perform this action, trigger the generic build or trigger git build, so those things. So here you have to provide the Jenkins URL, username, and API token, and then the build. So those things you have to provide here. So so this webhook configuration basically for whenever the code is pushed to your repository, at the time it has to trigger the build in Jenkins. Okay, so for that thing, so we have to complete these settings actually, the Jenkins base URL, and what is the username and passwords to be used for authenticating the Jenkins, and then the build, maybe the what is the build name. So those things we have to provide here. So you know the concept, right? What is the purpose of the service hooks? It's like just the integration between the Azure DevOps to another tool. It's not only for the maybe the Jenkins. It is for other. There are many things, right? So for example, App Center. So there are many tools available here. Okay, and then yeah. So
Is
if
that similar to the OAuth?
yeah, the word there you are just configuring the connection details. Okay, but here, for example, here it would be something like API call. The webhook means mostly the API call. So so here, right, you will be providing the so there, right, you are not initiating any call actually in the word configuration. You are not initiating any call. You are just configuring the credentials of the particular account, maybe the Bitbucket or the GitHub. So those credentials only you are saving there. But here, when the particular action is maybe when the particular action is happen, at the time you are triggering the particular API call, so that will automatically maybe call the particular job. So basically it will run the job in Jenkins. So that is for one example. Maybe for example you want to post some Slack. So the Slack is something like the chat tool, right? So you can post a message to your channel. So maybe here the supported events, all the supported actions, you can post a message to a channel. So for example, here the action can be like the build is completed. Whenever the build is completed, you want to get the notification in your Slack channel. Okay, so that everyone in the channel they can be get notified, right? So maybe this will be something like
Hmm.
integration between DevOps to the third party tool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the notification, so how do you set up email, or how do you set up the notification?
Yeah, so you can just enable it, so it will automatically send the email. We don't need to configure any SMTP server and all. So for example, we are using the Azure DevOps cloud service only, right? So they will have the mail configuration, everything has set up. Okay, you just need to enable the particular thing. If it is disabled, you have to enable it. You will get the notification mail automatically. We don't need to. So in the cloud setup,
And
yeah,
no, my other question is like on the, you have a different menu, right? Like the notification menu
yeah, here,
about to the service hooks.
yeah.
Yeah, you can close this one, and then yeah, on that notification, where do you set up the email, or how do you set up the notification to be sent?
So, for example, right? So currently, whenever the build is completed, the particular maybe
Hmm.
currently it is enabled. So whenever the build is completed, we will be getting the notification. So for example, the individual members within the team only they will be notified. Okay. So for example, here we don't have any option, but actually, so when it is enabled, right? Build
Is it like the
complete.
whole team will be getting notification?
Maybe here any team project, yeah, specific team project. But currently, right, we don't have any project. Maybe the pipeline and all, right? We don't have any pipeline. So maybe that is the reason maybe we are not able to choose the field. Maybe when we are creating the pipeline, right, so at the time we can see the triggering configuration and all. Maybe I
Okay.
will used to invite all of you in our project, and then whenever we are creating the particular build, then you all will be notified. Okay. Yeah. So and then Azure boards. Maybe yeah, here you can only the team admins can set up a permission for all dashboards. So for example, you can create some dashboards like maybe the what are all the tasks completed today, and by using some kind of query, yeah, you can create the dashboard. So basically for number of tasks completed, and maybe who didn't log the hours in the uh, maybe in the corresponding work item. So those kind of the custom dashboard we can create it. Okay, so based on the query, uh, yeah, maybe here we are allowing any members to create dashboard, edit dashboards. Okay, so here we have the dashboards, right? Maybe we can create the custom dashboards also. I think currently we don't have any. Maybe yeah, I will show. Maybe I will show you maybe in the subsequent session like how to configure the maybe the custom dashboards. Okay, so the next we are in the yeah project settings. Yeah, so and then the project configuration, the team configuration, GitHub connections, the agent pool. So those things we have seen there, right? So agent pool, parallel jobs and all. Yeah, so this is maybe the we have the Azure board, right? So this configuration is specific to the Azure board. Basically, the start date and end date of the maybe the sprint. Maybe when we have the sprint, right, we need to specify the maybe if you want to override the sprint name, maybe you can override the name also. Maybe this sprint is starting from uh, maybe maybe October 1st to maybe it will go to the next 2 weeks something. So we can provide like that. Okay, so this kind of project configuration we can save it here, and then the team configuration. Yeah, so here using basic process to customize your work items, go to the yeah. So for example, whenever you are creating any backlog, right? So you can be whenever you are going to the backlog, you can create the epics or issues currently. So if you want them to allow only the epics to be created, then you can maybe the untick the issues so that they won't be able to create. And then here the number of the working days, right? So for example, maybe in the sprint, right, for example, so usually we will be working from Monday through Friday. Okay, so for example, if they are working on Saturday also, they can add it, so that accordingly it will add the capacity and burn down chart and all. Maybe the maybe the velocity, so those kind of metrics the Azure DevOps will generate. So that will be based on the number of days in a week actually we are using. So if you are we have selected the sprint date, right? So by selecting this date, it is around 10 days, or if you are choosing the Saturday, then it could be 12 days, right, if it is in this 2 weeks or sprint. So accordingly, yeah, it will add the maybe the capacity and burn down chart also it will do. Okay, and then the GitHub connections. Yeah, so this is the GitHub and all. They recently the Azure is maybe acquired the GitHub also, right? So they have done the integration the GitHub with Azure boards also, and link commits and pull requests to work items. Okay, so whenever, for example, you have the task in your board, that so you have to create a one login page. Okay, so you can easily link those commits and pull requests to the particular work items. So when you're going to the particular work items, you can see what are all the commits you have done, what are all the pull requests you have raised. So those kind of connections, by integrating this step, by completing this step, so you can see so all those commits and pull requests by default. It will show all the commits from the Azure repos, but the GitHub is it is from the outside, right? So that if you want to know all the maybe the work item status by just knowing the commits you have done and then the pull request, yeah, you can make this connection actually. Okay, and then the agent pools, so that we know. So for example, whenever we are running this job, right? So so basically, so it will be running behind in some kind of agent machine. So if you want any new machine, maybe if you want to configure our local machine as the maybe agent machine, so there is some kind of procedures we have to follow. By following this one, so whenever we are running this step, maybe the bill will be running in the specified agent machine. So for example, whenever we are creating the pipeline, right, we have to mention where the particular bill has to be run. So at the time we have to choose whether it's from the Azure pipelines or the default, or if you're creating any new agent pool. So at the time we have to select there. Okay, so that we can see in the pipeline, maybe the session, and then the parallel jobs. Yeah, the number of parallel jobs is
So on
allowed.
the new, I'm sorry, on the new pool,
Yeah,
when you add the pool here,
yeah.
so is there an option like providing a promise or no?
No, promise means I don't know what.
Unpromise, unpromise.
Okay, on premise. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. The on-premise, yeah. For example, sometimes, right, you will have the on-premise VM or something. So at the time, you can configure the VM as the agent pool.
Right. How do you configure? Where is the
Yeah.
so
So for
self-host
example, this
and
is the self-hosted, right?
mhm.
That you set up and manage your own to run jobs. Okay. Here you can just provide this one and grant access to. Yeah, I think we need to run, maybe we have to install some application in your VM, and after that we have to enable it. So maybe I will show, I will show that in the next session. Okay, but I didn't prepare that one, but mostly we will use the Azure pipelines and self-hosted one. So if you want to know how to do, maybe configure the on-premise one as the agent pool, yeah, I will search and then I will respond you. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And then yeah, mostly like maybe you will be installing some applications in your VM, and then we have to enable it. We'll see. Yeah. Okay, and then the parallel jobs. Yeah, so the number of parallel jobs is allowed. So that thing here we are seeing like from the self-hosted, right, the parallel jobs is one. And if you want to maybe if you need multiple parallel jobs something, yeah, maybe we need to get the license to one, and maybe it will incur some charges also for that one. Okay, and then it also similar like other retention, like the days to keep artifacts. The artifacts means build, right? uh, like 30, maybe the 30 days, actually till 30 days we will be keeping that build, and after that it will purge actually. And the days to keep pull request runs, maybe the 10 days number of reasons runs to retain per pipeline. Okay, disable anonymous access. Yeah, this is something days to keep runs, I don't know exactly what is the property it is. Days to keep pull request runs. Okay, maybe whenever retention policy. So this is much clear, like maybe the artifact, right? So that should be the 30 days. Maybe if you want, we can extend it. Yeah, maybe I will see maybe the what is the usage of this property. Maybe it will have just some meaning. Even you can also just search. Maybe it will be the some straightforward only. Okay, and then the test management from the test plan. So the QA team, they can create uh, the test case, and then they can maybe they can add the snapshot, maybe the screenshot. So it will have some useful maybe similar like other service, right? The test plan also similar like that one. And here flaky test detection, yeah, but I didn't use that one. But maybe I will see this one also maybe later. Okay, the test plan, test management. Yeah, the release retention, maximum retention days to retain a release, minimum release to keep. Okay, so for example, whenever you are running the build, right? So first you have to create as the release, and after that only we can deploy into the platform, maybe the deployment platform. Okay, so for example, release 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it will go maybe till the latest bill we ran. Okay. So maybe mostly it will retain the release till 365 days, and then minimum releases to keep. At least even if it is expired something, at least it will keep at least 25 releases. Okay, maybe this one also we'll see when we are doing the build and maybe the release can maybe release pipeline, right? So at the time we can see this one. And then the service connections, so I think this one also the same, like yeah, so I think
Something like what we saw on the service hooks.
yeah, and I think we have configure the both configuration, right? So we don't need to provide the details here. We can just maybe choose that one, and then we can, when we are clicking on authorize, then if the maybe the details and all valid, then it will be success, otherwise it will fail. Okay, I think here we can provide authentication and password. um, Service name, grant access. Yeah, this is also maybe the similar like webhooks. Yeah, maybe mm, new Bitbucket cloud service connection. Okay, yeah, service connection name. Okay, yeah, so here also for example, if you want to connect Bitbucket cloud service, right? um, so for example, here maybe I am having the repository in the Bitbucket cloud, and here what configuration. mm, okay, so this is the one we have added the credentials, right? I think this is the one, I guess. um, yeah, maybe we will try to maybe we will try to integrate the GitHub. Maybe at the time I will show the cloud service connection, we will see at the time. And but basically like maybe if you are having the repository in the Bitbucket cloud, so at the time we have to use this option. And then here we can provide like whether the all the pipelines can access this one or not, so something like. So we can directly, I think, refer the service connection name there. Yeah, we'll see when we are using the Azure pipeline. Maybe what we can do, like maybe we can create the pipeline like our repository is there in Gen, maybe repository is there in GitHub, so that we will try the service connection example. Okay, maybe in the subsequent section we will see that one. Okay, so just for an example, maybe I'm just saying here, so what are all the available options in the project settings and the repositories, this SAML, even this one also we didn't use this one, subscription ID, subscription name. Yeah, so I will see this one also later. And the repositories, and artifacts, and then the test retention period. So mostly the testing team, they will have all the test plan, everything in the test plan. And I think those configuration, like the retention period and the snapshot and all will be there, right? Um, so those retention period we are mentioning it here. Okay, so the next one I will show how to create the task and all. So for example, in our case, right, we have created the basic process. Maybe when we are creating the project, right, we have chosen the basic process, and here you have the option of epic, issue and task. Okay, the epic means at the higher level, maybe the it's like maybe authentication and authorization of maybe the portals to be enabled, and under that the issue and task. So maybe I'm just creating the maybe the task for now. So for example, based on the process you are selecting, based on that the task type here it is showing, right, it will vary. So for example, if you are choosing the scrum process something, it will show the uh, maybe the any impediment or product backlog or something. So those option also here it will come, but since we are choosing the basic process, this is the three options here. Okay, maybe that currently it is in the to do, and then the description, and also based on the work, maybe the work item. So this is the task, right? So that it is expecting the description, discussion and all. Maybe if suppose it's the bug and all, right, then the reproduce steps, and so that there the number the field it is expecting it would be different. Okay, so just for an example, I'm adding this one, and click on save. So for example here, right, the deployment. So currently it is not, yeah. So for example, the development, right? So whenever you are working on this story, if you are referring this maybe the task, then at the time it will show maybe all those commits, everything it will display here. Maybe the what is the branch you have created, and what is the commit you have performed till, and whether you raise the pull request or not, and those details and all it will be show here. And also you can link the task also. Maybe here you can link the task, like you can consider like this is the parent one. Maybe from here you can create the some child task, like under the login screen you have to do some other maybe the forget password functionality, or the Google authentication, so something. So you can add as the maybe the add link, so we can create as the child task also. Here we can basically we can link it. And so in this one we are not maybe we are not going to do anything here and all, but our focus mainly should be in the Azure pipeline. So here we don't need to be worried uh, on the on these things and all. Okay, so currently I'm going back to work items. So one maybe the one work item I have created, right? So now I'm going to backlog. So here, so mostly the Scrum Master and maybe the product owner. So they will create the new work item, like maybe the payment screen. So some kind of backlog items they will create, and then they currently they will be putting into the backlog something, and maybe once they have started the sprint, right, they will be just move and assign to this sprint, so that it will be added into the sprint one. Okay, so this is our current sprint. Even you can we can plan a new sprint also, like this is the sprint 2. This will start from maybe first November, first yeah, December till something, yeah, some kind of date we can choose, and then we can just create it, and then whenever we are
So
creating.
is a sprint like iteration? What is
Yeah, it is the iteration. So for example, this is the
iteration?
sprint, right? So this is the
Mhm.
first sprint one. Okay, and this is from 12 okay.
So do you okay? So you said sprint here, or is it sprints belongs to Azure? Because so iteration is same. If we said iteration one, iteration two as a task here.
Okay, so you are
Mm.
talking based on the user story something. Okay, for example, right here we have the many backlogs, and based on the maybe the team velocity and capacity, we are just assigning those tasks to the particular sprint. Okay, so currently this is the active sprint, like maybe this is the current sprint, right? 12/1 to 12/4
Correct.
2021. Yeah, so there is just like a 3 working days, but it's
So
just
what
for.
I mean is the sprint is here, sprint one, sprint two. Is it other name of iteration? Is it same way,
Yeah.
or
This
is
is
it
this
somehow
is the one iteration, and this is
same?
another iteration. That's it.
Okay.
And we can continue maybe once the particular sprint is completed, right? So we have to create the new sprint, and then maybe when we are the developer and the others working on the sprint too, at the same time the agile coach or the scrum master, they will work on the next sprint also, what task we need to assign to the dev team, so that they will have the option to create the sprint 3, sprint 4, sprint 5, even the active sprint only one. Okay, and then the queries, yeah. So for example, if you want to query some task, right, whether it is completed, to whom it is assigned. So for example, if you are working in the 10 members project, then we don't know what is the task completed and who is working on it, or what are the tasks still pending. So those kind of query, yeah, we can have it here. So for example, work item any, so which means like it can be maybe the task or bug or epics or something. Work item any means, yeah, it can be any of the work item. And then the state also, here it is showing it like maybe here we can say like work item is open, or some kind of value we can provide, and after that we can save this query also for the future, maybe open work items. Okay, it will be stored under my queries, so that whenever you need, right, you can just run this query to get some kind of results actually, when you are running this query, right? But currently we don't have any. Okay, so for example, okay, so currently it is showing the two results: the login screen to be prepared created, and then payment screen. So for example, I am moving the payment screen to the I'm going to Azure boards. So currently it is in the to do. Okay, I am moving to doing. Okay, so I'm going to queries tag again. So currently, I think for this query, right, the two results it is returning. I think I have changed to doing, right. Okay, stay. Yeah. So yeah, because our query is any state, right? So that's why it is returning the two. For example, if I am changing it to do alone, so that we will have a only one query actually. So mostly this is for maybe just for an example. This is the simple one, but if you think like maybe when we are working big projects and all, right, maybe if you want to query some kind of if you want to filter some kind of work items, so at that time, so here the field can be anything like priority. So based on the priority also we can select, I guess. So here yeah, so the priority field and all there, right? So that high priority, so at a management high level, right? So they will be just setting the priority, and then they will maybe the priority one, so that they will get the immediate results. So for that reason, the query also will be used. And for example, currently the sprint two, right? So we have maybe selected, and under that we have added one new task, right? Maybe what we can do is we can just complete this one, so that this is done. So even there are many options, maybe the apex view or this one, and then filter. So here also there are many options there, so maybe you can try. So but most of the things maybe when you are going through that, yeah, you will be able to understand. But even so, when from the DevOps perspective, but it's not like our role. So everything, maybe this is like a usual developer role. If the moving the maybe updating the task, everything, right? And then maybe the logging the hours inside the task. So everything is all of the task. And maybe the schedule, maybe the configuring the sprint and those things, and all the responsibility of the scrum master, so they will be taken care. Okay, so this is the some small intro about bots. Maybe when you are created the Azure DevOps account, right, maybe you can create some dummy project, and then you can set up following multiple process, and then you can see and what is the difference in all. Maybe I will show tomorrow like Agile and Scrum difference. Maybe you can also try whenever you want. Okay. So the next maybe we will have a 8 minutes. So the next one is maybe we need to see the source control management. Okay. So for example, the source control management also one of the important topic. So for example, we need to be very careful on source code versioning, and who is having what are all the permissions, and uh, maybe the trace end-to-end traceability, everything we need to have. So otherwise, maybe when the same person, maybe the when in the same project, when the multiple people's working there, right? So that to manage it will be something difficult. So that is why we are going to the source control management. We are following some kind of best practices like branching policies, and then maybe the branching strategy also. So the branching strategy I will explain later, like maybe how to run the, from which branch we need to run the dev environment, and how to move the code to higher environment, how to take the build number. So those things and all versioning, and maybe the tagging. So that thing we will comes to later. But this is the some small introduction about this one. Okay, so for example, from the Azure DevOps, right, they are providing the two tools, for example the Git and TFVC, and maybe you can hear about the other tools also for the source control management perspective, like Mercury Subversion. Okay, and there are two major classification is centralized and then distributed, maybe the repository, maybe it's not like repository, the distributed, maybe source control management system something. So for example, if you are taking the example of TFVC, this is the, it will become comes under the centralized, the source code management tool. So why? Because it will have the code in the centralized, the one place, and from there the all the dev team, they will maybe they will take the code, and after that they will check out the particular, whatever the files they want to update, right? They will check out the particular file, and after that, once the code is completed, they will make the changes. So that is why we are saying it like centralized. So the code, the will be maintained in the one centralized location, maybe in your organization, right? There can be some one on-premise server, and inside the TFVC will be installed, and all the source code and all will be there. So when it comes to the dev perspective, you will be copy the code, and then you will be check out the particular file, and after that only, once the code you have completed, then you will be maybe check in and check out and all you will do. But here the thing is, maybe if you don't have any internet connection something, then you cannot do any code commit and all, you can't do anything. So that is the one of the drawback also, for example. And another one is like, for example, if multiple persons working on the same file, okay, at the time, till one completed the whoever, maybe the check out the particular file, so till then they won't be able to, others they can't edit the particular file, so that the other person and all, till they need to wait the particular the code is completed. Okay, but the distributed is something different. So for example, here you will be having the remote repository, and all the, maybe in the, you will be having the local repository also. So for all their local machine, right, you will be having the copy of uh, the source code actually. Okay, so for example, even you don't need to have any kind of internet also. You can just clone the maybe the particular repository in your local machine, and then you can work on it, and then you can internally merge with the main branch. And when the internet is up, and after that also you can push it to the maybe the remote repository, so that from there everyone can access the latest code. Okay, but here the thing is, the centralized, the code will be maintained in the only centralized location, and from there other persons will get the code, and then they will check out the particular file, and then they will modify the changes. So once anyone check out the particular file, so till they are completing the particular checkout process, others can't modify anything on the particular file. But from the distributed, or maybe the source control model, so it will be there in remote, and then it will be distributed in all the other development machine also. So they will be having the copy. Okay, so whenever the maybe for every day, right, before starting the work, you can get pull, maybe you can pull all the changes from the remote repository, so that you will be having the exactly same as the remote version. So you can locally working on it, and then you can commit the changes locally, and then finally whenever maybe at the end of the day, you can push it to the remote. And similar way, others also they can try the same, and if there is any merge conflict, then we need to work locally, and then after that we have to push it. Okay, so this is so that's why the distributed, the git and all will be comes under the git will be comes under the distributed, the source code management. And the centralized means it, the TFVC and all, it will be comes under the centralized one. Okay, and I will show what is the features in the git actually. Okay, so it will be there in the pull request flow. For example, the pull request means, um, uh, um, so for example, when we are having the one repository, right, there can be many branches. The branches means, for example, the every developer, right, so they will create their own branches, and once they have completed the code in the branches, and then they will raise the pull request to the main branch. The pull request means it is kind of merge request from your branch to main branch or master branch. So in between, someone has to approve the approve the code, so then only we can move it to the main branch. So so those kind of the conditional things are there. And then the branching policy, the branching policy is like maybe you cannot delete the, you will be having the restricted permissions only on the branches, okay. And then you cannot maybe you cannot merge the code to the master branch or main branch without getting the two approval or something. So those kind of maybe the conditions we can mention in the branching policies. So this will ensure like maybe if any new person, if they are the fresher or something, if they are, there is some chance of deleting the branch, or they can be pushed the wrong code to the branches and all, it can happen. So for that reason, by if you have configured the branching policies, so that we can easily we can protect the branches, then we don't want to face any kind of unnecessary situations and all. And then hooks for CI/CD to call the third party system. For example, whenever the code has been pushed, right, so automatically we have to build the we have to start the build in the Jenkins or Bamboo, or we have to post the message in the Slack channel. So those kind of configuration we can do with the Azure DevOps, okay. And then end-to-end traceability, the end-to-end traceability means for each and every the line you have modified, and for what maybe the user story you have modified this code change, and who has done maybe, and at what time they have completed. So maybe all those details maybe we can track it here. So that is, so that also one of the important thing. And also, for example, if there is any issue, you can be revert back to the previous version from the source code also. So for example, yesterday you are pull the latest code from the remote, and after that maybe you did some wrong code. So now you want to maybe revert to the maybe the whatever the code version you have in the maybe week before. So that one also it is possible using the git remote revert or restore command. So those kind of the features the git is providing. And then the Azure repos hierarchy, for example, maybe it's not like Azure repos hierarchy, maybe I can say like Azure DevOps hierarchy. Like we will have a multiple we can have one or more organizations, and under the organization we will have one or more projects, and one under a one project we will have one or more repositories, and repository also we will be having the branches, okay. So for example, we are having the one repository for account service, okay. So for the account service we will be having the main branches like master, develop, deploy. There are many branches we can create it. For each branch we can set it up for certain.
1 second.
Yeah.
Hey, it's 11 o'clock up, so we might need to wind up the session.
Yeah, maybe just 2 minutes. So I will just complete this
that's
slide and then we will complete it. Okay. And yeah, this is how the hierarchy will work. And after that, so maybe before tomorrow's session, right? Maybe you can just try to install the Git in your machine. Okay, and after that we will try to run these kind of basic commands. So is anyone worked with Git before?
No.
Okay, yeah. So maybe what you can do is like you can just search maybe everyone using the Windows OS or the Linux or the different OS also you are using. If all of them are using the maybe Windows one, you can just search for Git for Windows. Okay. So when you're searching in the Google, you will get some first link. When you go there, then there you will be finding some installer file or the zip file. So you can just follow the instruction. You can just maybe install the Git, and maybe tomorrow we will run all those basic commands like init clone. So these are all the basic commands for maybe pushing and making the changes, committing it. So we will see that one tomorrow. Maybe you can just try to install the Git in your local machine tomorrow, and we will run those basic commands, and I will walk you through what is the each command is means for. So I will explain you tomorrow. Maybe, yeah, as Daniel said, so I think this may be the late night to you all. Yeah, maybe we can wind up the session now. Maybe we will continue from tomorrow.